think, you know, the world is so simple that everyone who disagrees with you is just a mean, bad bigot who hates people.
True, they are.
You're just so infinitely wise, Alec, that you have the whole world figured out, including these complex debates and issues and societal concepts around gender and sex and sexuality.
I am the smartest person.
And you've got it all figured out. Crystal clear. It's black and white. It's all cookie cutter morality. And the people that disagree with you couldn't possibly have any sort of good faith belief. They must all just be motivated by hate. The arrogance.
Even if the belief that you have is motivated by good faith, a good faith belief can still be stemmed from hatred, okay? You hate trans people. I can prove it mathematically. So, lore time, I made a video of Brad Palumbo where he was going over the Giggle versus Tickle case, which is, I know, hilarious, from Australia, which basically says that a lesbian app was discriminating against trans women for literally, like, they have an AI bot that tries to detect trans women to boot them from the app, right? Which is shitty in and of itself. But then after being assumed a woman, a trans woman was assumed a woman. Her name is Tickle. Right? That's her last name, Tickle. The owners of Giggle went in to delete her from the app themselves. So they overrode the AI bot, which clocked her as a woman, and they removed her for being trans. And Brad Palumbo and I forget who he had on, some shitty woman, were going over this case and being all mad about, you know, how transphobia lost today, right? Well, then he made a response video to that video, which is right here. As you can see, I have the Tim Pool beanie on because we were joking about me looking like Tim Pool that day. Not the best time to be wearing it, but whatever. So here I am in a Brad Palumbo video, and I figured, why not go over it? And I don't know if I'm going to go over the whole thing, but I'll at least give him a little bit. We'll give him a chance. It's all just transphobic. Maybe he has legit criticisms of me and I should listen. Let's give him a chance. The only thing that aligns any of what they're saying together is transphobia.
I deserve smarter haters.
It's true though. No, everything that I just said was completely true.
Really do. A woke YouTuber makes an insane hate video about me and Sydney Watson. A CNN reporter gets owned on TV. A wild suggestion from Trump when it comes...
Good. I forgot he does like 3 different segments per video. So I guess he's going to start with me and it'll only go for like 10 minutes. Okay, that's good.
To credit card rates, and a TikToker wants us all to still be wearing masks. All this and so much more is coming up.
Not masks,
today's
not
episode
the face
of the Brad
IDs.
vs. Everyone podcast, my daily show where I take on the craziest ideas from across the internet and across our politics. We're
not watching the whole thing, just the part with me.
If you're new here, please do consider subscribing and sticking around and independent perspective. If you're new across the internet and across our politics, all from a center-right, independent perspective. If you're new here, please do consider subscribing and sticking around.
It's definitely right-wing.
Regardless, do hit that like button and do comment with your thoughts as we go along. I do read the comments and I pick a few to respond to in every episode. Plus, if you leave your comment with a super chat or a super thanks, I'll definitely respond to it in the next show. And now we've got to react to one of the wildest hate videos I've seen about me.
Was it that wild?
In this case, it comes from a YouTuber and streamer named Alec Gunter, who is clearly very far left and is a big...
Oh, I'm all giddy about it. Ooh, I don't know. Something about it is, it's give me butterflies.
Pro-trans activist.
I'm famous.
And he decided
I'm basically
to respond
famous
to an episode of this show that I did with my friend Sydney Watson a few weeks ago, where we talked about the Tickle versus Giggle case in Australia. If you remember, that was the case where there was a female entrepreneur who started an app that was for women to meet and connect with other women, and she made it a female-only space and did not allow trans women, who are, of course, biologically male. She was then sued by Roxanne Tickle, a trans woman, and the judge recently ruled in Roxanne Tickle's favor, even declaring that sex can be changed in this ruling. Sydney and I criticized this for its bizarre view on the mutability of sex.
It literally, listen, don't make me point at the chart. Don't make me point at the chart. Beautiful, okay? For those who are wondering, this is the sex spectrum chart, the gender spectrum. I forget who it was made by. This is the chart right here. Actually, it's important to know who it's made by. Hold on. Infographic reveals the startling complexity of sex determination. It was published in Scientific American's former blog network and reflects the views of the author. Sex and gender pervade nearly every aspect of our lives. Let me skip ahead. Project was originally conceived as a data-driven graphic exploring the spectra of sex and gender. I wondered, for instance, what data could tell us about the frequency of transgender and non-binary identities, what proportion of the population is intersex, and how that value might break down into rates of specific DSDs. I hired the researcher Amanda Hobbs to look into these questions, and what she came back with rather than answers looked more like a series of new questions. The search for solid data on transgender and intersex populations proved challenging and was confounded by a variety of factors. For example, surveys often lump transgender in with gay, lesbian, and bisexual identities, and DSDs, in addition to being variously defined by different entities, sometimes go undetected or emerge unexpectedly, either during sexual development or later in life. Let me skip ahead a little bit. I said about assembling the content of the graphic and putting it down on paper. In part, this process clarified how much I could include, as the complete list of known DSDs and the various manifestations proved unwieldy for a single spread in a print magazine. So this is by, who's the author? Amanda Montanez and the other person that she hired, Amanda Hobbs. Okay, that's who the chart's by. So you can see here, you have things like mixed gonadal dysgenesis, which causes 45X and 46XY mosaicism. Very complex stuff that I myself don't know a lot about. We have 46XX here, absence of SRY gene. Sometimes the SRY gene is present, which leads to intersex conditions, like XX testicular disorder of sex development, Turner syndrome. Like, this is all, it's all black and white right here. Like, this is all to do with sex, and sex is very much on a spectrum. Okay? Anyway, back to this.
And we argued that we should be able to have
and is mutable, by the way. That was the point of why I brought it up. It is mutable. You can take hormones to basically change sexual characteristics about you.
In society that are still segregated by biological sex, not self-perceived gender identity. Well, Alec Gunter didn't take kindly to our perspective and decided to make a video called Transphobes Are Seething Over Landmark Discrimination Case, featuring me and Sydney in the thumbnail. I'm always open to criticism. I'm always open to the idea that maybe I've gotten something wrong. No, you're not. Shut the fuck up. So I watched his full video with an open mind. But frankly, I wasn't very impressed. I guarantee you he's just going to whine to refute our counter arguments, because a lot of it ended up being ad hominem or also to illustrate kind of
I specifically made a point in that video to not make fun of his looks, which I did here as well, despite people in the chat trying to goad me into it. I saw you talking about his jawline and shit, all right?
I'm just saying some of the things we were talking about. So we're going to go through some highlights. First,
I did insult him a lot. Here's the thing. Ad hominem is not, it's not just insulting somebody. It's insulting somebody in place of an argument, okay? So if he says transgender women are not real women, and I say, well, you're just a dumbass, which is true. Even if that is true, that's an ad hominem. Hominid, something. Okay? That's what an ad hom is.
This guy I'm showing you is not Tim Pool.
Now, if I say you're a dumbass and I can prove it mathematically, and then I proceed to do so, then it's not ad hom.
He does look like Tim Pool, the right-wing YouTuber.
I have been accused of looking like Tim Pool. This is true. And that's why I put the beanie on that day. If you go back and watch the VOD, you can see that.
But he's actually not. At first, I was very confused. Second, I'm actually wearing the same shirt in this episode today that I did in the episode he's reacting to, which might be a little confusing, but it's just a total coincidence. I had already picked out this shirt. So what you're seeing are clips of him live streaming our episode and discussing it. And then I'll bring us back here and we'll talk about it. Up first, here's his commentary on my appearance. I take on the...
There's something up.
Craziest ideas from
not going to comment on his looks
across our politics, all from a center right.
I specifically said not going to comment. I think that if you do, okay, literally, like when I know going in that somebody's transphobic, I just like there's something off about them immediately every time. Every time better about that.
If you knew he merch that I just.
Why does he look like that? I'm telling you, there's something about like evil people. There is something. It's very intense. Yes, thank you. It is very intense.
Dropped. Your math isn't mathing. Your Delulu is showing.
Clearly been more at the whoever carved this dude's face forgot to sand down the edges. Stop, you heathens!
Woman who
how dare you take the low-hanging fruit
their way onto a. So I did find.
Okay, he called me Tim Pool. I don't give a. Okay, people call me Tim Pool all the time, and I hate that guy. Who cares? Get over it.
Funny how he was like, I'm not gonna insult his looks. Then went on to talk about my looks, but it didn't really bother me because I'm not.
You haven't. Oh, if it didn't bother you, then don't put it in the video, you liar. It clearly bothered you. Go ahead, insult me, make fun of my double chin. I don't give a f, okay?
Insecure about how I look, and I just always take it as a sign that somebody doesn't have much of substance to say when they're criticizing my appearance. And also, he's calling me evil, and guys, this was at the start of the video. He hadn't even watched my video yet, so he was supposedly live reacting to this and hadn't seen it, and he's calling me evil before he's even heard anything I had to say. To me,
I did not call him evil, necessarily. I said there is something about evil people where they look weird. Okay, something looks off about evil people, and he looked a bit off, and that's why I said that. I wasn't necessarily calling him evil yet, okay?
Me, that did
demonstrate a bad argument.
A pretty remarkable close-mindedness, but
he looks like he's number one. With that one. That's a good one. Wait, now that's a good one. You gotta, okay, you gotta admit, down to the hair, dude, down to the hair. That's not an insult. I love my boy Robbie Rotten. I love Robbie Rotten, okay? He's one of my favorite antagonists.
Now, so here's a clip where he talks about his take on the case, and I want to say, I just want to show you this because
not an ad hom.
Illustrate a real lack of familiarity with the actual case we were discussing.
This, the transphobes lost their little. Yeah, I demonstrated a lack of familiarity because I was going into it fresh. You guys are presenting this case to me, and then I went ahead and looked into what was going on. Okay, just because I didn't look into the case beforehand or know anything about it doesn't mean that anything I was saying was wrong. That is an ad hom. Dating app, right? Because it was transphobic as shit. Well, actually, no, that's not an ad hom because they're not. He's not insulting me for that. What would it be? It would be. It's some kind of fallacy. I don't know. Yeah, go.
Female.
Appeal to authority.
Giggle's legal team.
Wait, what was I saying?
Case we were discussing.
This, the transphobes lost their little dating app, right? Because it was transphobic as shit. Yeah, go.
Female. Giggle's legal team considered sex to mean the sex of a person at birth.
Agreed.
Today, a judge said those arguments...
Hold on. I gotta move my current face so you can see my other face. There we go.
...were contrary to 30 years of precedent.
Let's go!
Those cases established that in its ordinary meaning, sex is changeable.
Unfortunately, it is
true.
So a couple of things here. One, Giggle wasn't a dating app. And that might sound like a minor detail, but it's actually kind of important.
Was it not?
It was an app meant for friendships and community and meeting people, but it was not a dating app. The women...
Wait, Giggle was not a dating app? Is that true? Social app just for females under fire for Oh, I see. Okay. I thought it was a dating app, for like a lesbian dating app. Yeah, a social media app designed for females has come under fire for excluding trans women. I thought it was a dating app. It doesn't change any of what I said, though. Like, that's missing the point. You're missing the forest for the trees, man. Like, it's still the same shit. Women who want to meet other women, okay? Not necessarily a dating app. It's not that important. I don't think it's that important, but maybe let's hear him out.
Women on there were not all or even predominantly lesbians seeking other women. And I know that might seem like a small detail, but if you don't even understand the core concept of what these people were trying to create, I don't really understand how you can judge them. And
in my opinion, that makes it even worse. Because being trans is like mostly social. So like that makes it even worse. You know what? You can't accept trans women into your women-only social spaces. Like that's stupid.
I think it's wrong and then celebrate their inability to do so. And two, it's just strange to see somebody suggest that they agree with the notion that biological sex can be changed. It cannot be.
Hormones. I'm literally a nurse. I have medical training. Sorry, dude. You lose.
You can talk about gender
Appeal to
identity.
authority.
You can
yes.
talk about expressing yourself.
I just committed the fallacy.
You can talk about how you walk through the world. But sex is defined by the shape of your gametes, whether you're oriented towards the production of sperm.
Don't make me pull up the chart. Actually, I won't even pull it up. You guys know the chart.
Or
I just pulled it up.
And nothing about that. It is completely dimorphic. There's only two. And nothing about that changes.
Okay, so what if your body doesn't make either of those? Then what?
It's just because you change your outward appearance or your exterior. At the genetic level, there are hundreds of...
It's not just outward appearance. It's also your hormone levels. That's like the main part of sex is your hormone levels. It's not all of it, but everything about the female body is dictated largely by estrogen, and everything about everything that's female about the female body is largely dictated by estrogen, and everything that's male about the male body is largely dictated by testosterone. They're magic hormones. Like hormones are magic.
Thousands of differences between males and females that again don't go away just from hormones or from surgical alterations. I just totally disagree that you can actually change biological.
But you can. Hormones do that. Hormones are literally what differentiates male from female in utero. That's how that works. It's a hormone wash that dictates your genitalia and a bunch of your physical features.
Sex. I don't understand how somebody can think that. I want to show you guys something else he said that really stuck with me and was actually a little bit haunting.
That's how discrimination spreads. That's how intolerance spreads. You cannot tolerate intolerance in a tolerant society. You can't do it. It spreads like a disease.
So this is a frightening...
Wait, what? Hold on. What was wrong with what I just said? No, you can't tolerate intolerance. Sorry. Why is that frightening?
Thing to hear somebody who's supposed to be woke or progressive actually say. But the definition of a tolerant society is whether you tolerate different viewpoints and beliefs.
Do you tolerate Nazis? No, that's a real question. I want an answer to that. Do you tolerate Nazis? Just curious.
Even ones that others find controversial or offensive. Yes, you can tolerate intolerance in a tolerant society.
He tolerates Nazis.
That's what a tolerant
society is. He's saying it right here. Listen, he's saying that he tolerates Nazis. That's what he's saying.
Defined by toleration for our differences and our most important.
I don't even have to ask him. You tolerate Nazis. I'll say it right now. Brad Palumbo tolerates Nazis in our society. He's saying it right here. Don't believe me? He just said, like, a tolerant society allows for different viewpoints and beliefs. He tolerates Nazis.
This line of thinking is actually dangerous because it leads to the justification of suppressing people.
Unlike the guy who tolerates Nazis.
And harming people because of their perspective, because we can't tolerate...
Brad Palumbo, if you don't tolerate Nazis, I want a response to this explaining why.
Tolerance. Well, newsflash, my friend. A lot of people probably find your views, your far left views, intolerant in some
and they're wrong, and you're a dipshit for thinking that.
way or another. But I certainly still defend your right to say them and express them.
Shove it up your ass, you prick, dude. I don't give a f what you think you're defending me from, okay? Shut up.
Without being punished. But you're unknowingly, or perhaps knowingly, and still doing it.
I don't need your protection.
Undermining your own rights when you advocate this kind of thing. You also can't squash people with intolerant views out of existence. The more you try to punish them or force them into submission, the more they're going to resist. The more those ideas are going to fester. You don't convince people.
So what, you just allow them then? You just allow Nazis to run rampant in your society? You just allow Nazis to exist on Twitter, which he probably does. I mean, he's already said that he does, right? Like, you just allow Nazis to exist in your space, right? Because trying to quash them or make them go away would be bad, right? That'd be bad for your freedom of speech. That's a really stupid thing to do. Go ahead, let Nazis into your space, see what happens. Is he? I've heard that he's gay. Is he gay? I don't know if he's gay or not, but I've heard he is. And if he's gay, then he allows Nazis in his community. Well, good luck with that, man.
With a closed fist, you convince people, or if they're, say, bigoted or homophobic, by actually having them get to...
I'm going to say it right now. Some people cannot be convinced. And if you cannot be convinced and you have harmful views of society, there's just aspects of society in which you cannot participate. Yes, that's true. Okay? There are just things that you will not be allowed to do. You cannot be a Nazi in a regular workspace, a working environment. You can't be. Okay? Being a Nazi is implicitly violent already. It's implicitly violent. Because you're saying, I don't even think that black people or gay people or trans people or whatever should even exist. Okay? You are communicating that those people should not exist and therefore you would remove them by some means. Or that they're lesser somehow and that you would take away their rights. No, you can't exist in a workplace like that. Nope, sorry. Not in my society. Yeah, tolerance meaning I can't disagree with people and I can't vote for policies that support my beliefs. Exactly.
To know people who are different.
Brad is gay. There you go. Go ahead, gay Brad. Let Nazis into your community. See what happens.
From them and realize that a lot of their conceptions are false. So you reach out to people and change their minds with an open hand, not a closed fist. And that's
okay. Brad Palumbo, here's my open hand to you. Come on onto my show. We'll talk, okay? I've already made a debate request from him. I know that he got the notification because he saw my video without me even tagging him. I tagged him in this request. So I'm requesting Brad Palumbo, come onto my show and we'll debate this. We'll debate it. We'll talk it out, okay? I'm open to having my mind changed.
That's a very frightening and scary approach to have to these issues. Next, this guy, Alec, said something very bizarre where, and it becomes even more bizarre later in his video, because it kind of comes back to haunt him, that he actually said this. He doesn't see any need for sex markers on government documents or identification?
I really don't.
Take a listen.
So I'm willing, okay, this is one of those things that I'm willing to have my mind changed on. If he can prove that we should have sex markers on like male and female on documentation for some reason, then I'll grant it to him. Like if he can give me a good reason, sure. So, like I'll hear him correlate. Okay, so there's zero reason at all for the government to know what your sex organs are. Zero. That is an arbitrary thing, an arbitrary letter that we put on a birth certificate and on legal documents. It's just arbitrary. There's no reason for it. Why do legal documents need to have my assigned sex on them? Why? Just take it off.
They need to have that information because
treat it like it's so obvious, man. Go ahead.
Verboten this might be to say in some woke circles now, I guess, biological sex is a meaningful dimension of human life. Males and females are fundamentally different in important ways, and we have to have separation of the sexes in things like sports and prisons to preserve basic fairness and safety. Having that kind
Okay, but I seek a society where we don't have to have that separation, okay? First of all, in sports, I think that if sports can't accommodate trans women, then sports don't deserve to exist. Sorry. Sports is an entirely entertainment-oriented field, and I don't really care for it that much. I know that it's very important to a lot of people, but it's entirely entertainment-oriented. I'd say the same thing about movies. I'd say the same thing about any other entertainment industry. If you cannot accommodate trans people, it doesn't deserve to exist, okay? I was going to say something else. Hold on.
And prison.
For prisons. That's a little bit more complicated because we do have a problem with cis men committing sex crimes a lot. Okay, that's a socially driven problem. But the thing is, the way to fix that problem is by fixing the attitudes that we have toward men and toward sex with men, right? Like the way that men are taught in a what's the word? A male-dominated society, a patriarchy. The way that men are taught in a patriarchy is that they need to dominate women. They need to like grow up, get married, be a womanizer, dominate their woman, you know, have kids, whatever. That's just what we're implicitly taught. And so it's emasculating if you can't find a woman like that, or if you're not very, if you're not promiscuous and you're not sexually demanding, you know, that's considered emasculating. And so that leads to a lot of toxic masculine behaviors, such as molesting and even women. Okay? It's a power thing. We teach men that they have to be powerful. That's a toxic trait. Okay? Power is not always toxic, but it is in that respect. All right, and if we were to fix that aspect of society and start pushing for a society where we just treat the sexes completely equally, right, then we wouldn't have to have this discussion about men being so much more likely to commit sex crimes. It would level out largely. It just would. I think that it's socially driven. I don't think that there is a natural sexual component that makes me more likely to be violent than a woman would be, a cis woman.
To preserve basic fairness and safety. Having that kind of separation requires some distinction and ability to ascertain that distinction, which is why those documents exist and why sex is recorded at birth. Do people really not understand this basic reality anymore?
God, he is such a condescending head. I hate him. I hate him so much.
But of course, if we dare disagree with the infinite wisdom of Alec Gunter, or have a different opinion about the need for some degree of sex separation in society today, we must just be bigots.
They do have that's the truest thing he said this entire time. Concept of how definitions change in different contexts, how the definitions of words change in different contexts. They have a concept of that, but they don't care because it's all just transphobia. It's all just transphobia. The only thing that aligns any of what they're saying together is transphobia. That explains all of their behavior and everything that they want.
So there was a time a few years ago where somebody would have called me transphobic and I would have left to say, no, I'm not transphobic. How dare you? I'm not.
But now I own it. Now I know that I'm a transphobe and I own it. And that makes me based in poggers, right? Go ahead.
At this point, I don't
Call
really
yourself
care.
There you
Call
go.
me whatever you want. That word means nothing
fucking
at this
transphobe
point.
Piece of shit.
I know in my heart I don't have hate for transgender people in any way. I just see common sense and meaningful.
I just want to fix them. I just want them to be fixed. I don't think they're real women, but I'll accommodate them in some ways. Like, you just say that you hate trans people, because you do. Just say that you hate them.
Distinctions that still need to be maintained. And I have a nuanced perspective
you hate trans
on
people.
These issues.
Just say you hate trans people.
And that's okay, but
have some balls.
I'm not going to be swayed by this kind of just, screaming bigot at somebody. And I also think it's naive.
Fine, I won't scream bigot. Have some balls. Say you hate trans people. Say it. You won't, bitch.
Think, you know, the world is so simple that everyone who disagrees with you is just a mean, bad bigot who hates people.
True, they are.
You're just so infinitely wise, Alec, that you have the whole world figured out, including these complex debates and issues and societal concepts around gender and sex and sexuality.
I am the smartest person.
And you've got it all figured out. Crystal clear. It's black and white. It's all cookie cutter morality. And the people that disagree with you couldn't possibly have any sort of good faith belief. They must all just be motivated by hate. The arrogance.
Even if the belief that you have is motivated by good faith, a good faith belief can still be stemmed from hatred. Okay? You hate trans people. I can prove it mathematically.
Of that perspective, the complete dearth of intellectual humility, it's really quite remarkable, honestly. And I just can't relate to it at all. This guy actually went on to accuse me and Sydney of being perverts because we believe in
they are. I forgot about
separation in some concepts and some contexts.
But if you want to have a Boy Scouts that's just for Boy Scouts, go right on ahead and do that.
I disagree.
So that's number one. Number two is that when you have...
How are you going to verify that, right? How are you going to verify that? You going to do a dick check? Huh? You gonna tell the Boy Scouts you're gonna do a dick check? Is that what you're gonna do? That's weird. That's disgusting. That's actually perverted.
Have legislators determining that women aren't entitled to those single
They're
spaces.
Perverts. They have done that in some cases, by the way.
Well, that got weird very fast. And that's quite.
Well, how else are you gonna verify it? No, explain to me. No, you think I'm being weird. I'm telling you that in order to verify whether or not a child is a boy or a girl, biologically, quote unquote, if they're male or female, right? The only way to check that is two things. One, chromosome check. Two, dick check. That's your two options. So pick one, okay?
To make of somebody, no, we are not going to do any sort of genital inspections to just have something like Boy Scouts be segregated by...
Here, I want you to acknowledge this. Ohio trans athletes ban moving forward with genital inspections replaced by birth certificates. Education officials urge removal of trans language. Changes to remove genital inspections as part of a ban on trans student athletes have been approved by an Ohio Senate committee replaced by birth certificates as the overall bill continues to move forward. But they had it already. Genital inspections. Okay? They're replacing it with birth certificates, but if you can get your birth certificate changed to say female rather than male, which a lot of states will allow you to do now, then what else are you going to do? What if we get that changed? What if we get the sex on our birth certificate changed by changing our sex? How are you going to prove that we're male or female? The dick check. That's all you have to go on, okay? Literally. And yeah, it is really weird.
Sex. No, that's why documents need to have sex on them.
But this is a circular argument. Documents need to have sex on them because that helps us determine whether we should put our children in Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts. Why do we need to determine whether we should put our children in Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts? Because there's a letter on their birth certificate that says male or female. That's why. This is circular reasoning.
That's why at birth, your sex needs to be observed and put on your birth certificate and then not changed.
That's a dick check. That is a dick check. Sorry.
Because of your feelings, we have to have records of these things. It's so funny because
they literally dick check
10
you.
minutes ago in this.
That's how they get the letter on there in the first place. They dick check you. So there's always a dick check involved. Sorry.
Video. He was saying there's no need to have sex marked on documents. That's stupid. Give me one.
How do they determine the sex, Brad? How do they determine it?
Good reason why we need that. Here's your reason. So that then all we have to do is.
All I'm saying is it should be listed on your medical documentation that you were born a male. Okay? Medical documentation. Not legal. Not legal. Okay? That's a dick check. You are in favor. You are pro dick check. And more, you're pro dick check on newborns. I'll make it even worse. You are pro dick check on newborns. Brand new, fresh out of the oven newborns. You want to dick check them. Disgusting. Disgusting.
Consult your documents. Consult your medical record, your birth certificate, these kinds of things. And boom, we have an easy answer. But folks like you
how do you check their sex,
that
Brad
by
Palumbo?
Pushing for people to be able to falsely put on documents that their sex has been changed, even though you can't change your sex. And then we don't have that basic thing to consult and actually have a reliable answer from. So I'm not saying we would do this, but the only possibility or realm where that would even be a conversation is one where we've undermined the basic record keeping that is supposed to solve for all of that.
The government does not have all of my medical info, nor should they. Okay, the government doesn't know that I have ADHD. All right, they might now. But they don't keep that on record, nor should they, okay? They know that I have vision problems. That's on my record because I'm a driver, okay? And because because I drive, if I don't have my corrective, before I got LASIK, if I don't have my corrective lenses on, then I'm committing a crime, okay? Because I am knowingly driving without very good vision. That's fine, okay? In that case, the government does need to know how well I see. They do need that medical info. The government has no reason for your sex medical info, your sex organs. They don't have a reason for that. You are saying you are in favor of a dick check for sports. Yes, you are saying that for children, for newborns. That's what you want.
So, great job. Pervert. Do you? Maybe now you see the inconsistency in some of these arguments, dude. Maybe
I'm perfectly consistent.
Too shut off from other ideas to even be.
Come on to the show. Come on to the show. Hit me up. My email's in my YouTube description. You can get me on Discord too.
Open to seeing your own cognitive dissonance here. He also made some very specific claims about this issue that I do think are important to refute.
And there's no data that shows that trans women have the same crime statistics or proclivity for sexual misconduct as men do. There's no data to back that up. None.
So this is just not true. Research submitted to the UK Parliament says that males to females retained a male pattern regarding criminality, including for violent crime. It said
male to female transitioners were over 6 times more likely to be convicted of an offense than female comparators and 18 times more likely to be convicted of a violent offense. Well, where's this study from?
That male to female transitioners were over 6.
In the UK Parliament. This evidence is submitted to the WC as requested of Professor Rosa Freeman by Nicola Richards MP during the 9th December oral evidence session. The submission is divided into the following sections. 1, a summary of the Swedish study. The Swedish study has been debunked. A response to some attempt to rebut that study. 2, data from the Ministry of Justice. And 3, analysis of that data from a May 2020 academic paper on transgender prisoners in England and Wales. So it would be... Okay, this is where he's getting it from. Summary of findings. The Swedish study. Swedish cohort. This study's been debunked. Yeah, this study's been debunked. You don't even have to listen to this. So the 2 things I'm getting are things that say transgender people are over 4 times more likely, whatever. And violence against trans people, which is also very high, by the way. Oh, no, this one says 4 times more likely than cisgender people to be the victims of violent crime. They're actually way more likely to be a victim of violent crime than to commit it themselves. Transgender victims. The numbers. Shockingly high levels of sexual abuse and assault. 1 in 2 transgender individuals are sexually abused or assaulted at some point in their lives. Okay, so this is once again trans people being the victims of sex crimes. What even is the Swedish study? It's a debunked study about trans people's, likelihood of regretting their sexual surgeries. Violent crime rate for transgender people compared with the general population. The most recent publication regarding the prevalence of total crime broken down by gender identity can be found in the Associated Download Crime in England and Wales, year ending March 2020. The dataset shows the prevalence of total crime broken down by gender identity based on 6 months of CSEW data for the year ending March 2020. As violent crime is relatively rare, we were unable to publish prevalence estimates by gender identity because there were too few cases within those who identified as trans to produce reliable estimates. So as you can see, there's not even enough trans people that they can produce reliable evidence as to how much they commit violent crime. That's interesting. I mean, it seems to me as though this is just bullshit. So then the question is, where does this come from? The Swedish study, which was debunked. So yeah, this is just bullshit.
6 times more likely to be convicted of an offense than female comparators, and 18 times more likely to be convicted of a violent offense. The group had no statistically significant differences from other natal males for convictions in general or
from
for
a debunked study
offending.
From the 1980s.
Now, there may be other data suggesting otherwise or contesting this claim, and maybe there's a nuanced conversation to be had about what the research really show here, but to claim there's no data suggesting this sort of thing,
it's debunked data. You literally showed me a debunked study.
Isn't correct. There is plenty of data showing exactly that. Now, in the next clip, he suggests that we don't actually care about these issues at all, and it's all just a mask for our bigotry, of course.
True.
And the ramifications of this,
we can do it now.
You end up with things like biological males in female prisons going on to forcibly impregnate people or women in the prison. It's like...
Okay, that's a problem with rape in prison, a problem that you don't actually care about because you're a disgusting piece of shit. You don't want to fix rape in prison. This is what transphobes do. They hide behind other issues like little pussies. You don't care about rape in prison. You never have, and you don't, okay? You are a transphobe. Trans people do not commit at higher rates than other women in prison. Who is this guy? He's spitting. They don't do it. So I'm sorry. Like, this is a fake issue. If anything, they're way more dangerous. They're in a way more dangerous situation in a men's prison. Like, it's way more likely that a trans woman gets in a men's prison than it is that they go on to in a women's prison. The converse is way more likely, the inverse. So you don't care about in prison. You don't care if that trans person goes to a men's prison and they get... He's not going to debunk that, by the way. He's just going to bitch about how I told him... I correctly said that he doesn't care about those other issues. Assaulted. You don't give a single solitary... Spare me the bullshit. You are disgusting. Absolutely
high-level
abhorrent.
Sport and women having opportunities taken away from them by...
True.
So 2 things here. 1, Alec must not have done any research about me because I've actually spoken out about the issue of rape in prisons for a long time.
Good, you should go back to advocating for that then, you transphobic...
You can go back to 2019 and find me writing about an issue, this very issue, and saying that it's something that needs to be addressed because people who are sentenced to jail or prison
That's 5 years
aren't
ago.
supposed to be sentenced to sexual assault.
It's all about the
That's
transphobia now.
Ugly reality of our prison system in many cases. So to say that I don't care about this issue generally is just not true. I have a track record of speaking about it many years ago. And secondly, this idea that we don't care about trans women being at risk for assault in prisons is also not true, at least for me, because if you look at my commentary on this, I've always had a nuanced position. I've always said that male transgender people should not be placed in women's prisons, traditional women's prisons, especially when they're in jail for a violent or sexual offense, but that it's also not necessarily safe to put them in a men's prison. So I've spoken with people.
What about women who have, what about cis women who have committed sexual offenses? Where should they go? I'm just curious, like cis women who have committed sexual offenses, where do they go? Men's prison? Or this special third prison that you're referring to? Because if it's just like sexual offenses and you want a third prison for people who commit sexual offenses, that's at least consistent. But like, so far, that doesn't seem to be your position. Like, if a cis woman were to commit a sexual offense, you would say put them in the women's prison, right?
Like Blair White about...
Just like if a man, like a cis man commits a sexual offense, you say put them in the men's prison.
The idea of a trans ward or some sort of separate facility for those people so they can be simultaneously safe while not putting others in danger. I have discussed the
separate but equal
of that, and I haven't discounted it or ever suggested that I don't care what happens to trans women in men's prisons. That's just not true. I have a lot of...
I just don't think they're real
compassion for them the same way I would for anyone who's vulnerable for assault or abuse. And I certainly agree that in that
just not enough compassion to, like, you know, put them with cis women
context, they would be. I'm not going to make you
an environment that would be way mentally healthier for them.
Any more of this guy's video, but I just have to say once again, I really do feel that I deserve smarter haters. I don't think I'm...
Debate me.
Perfect.
You won't.
I don't think I'm a genius. I don't think I have the whole world figured out. I'm sure there's flaws and holes in my commentary, but it just seems that, at least so far, the people who've tried to debunk me or destroy me or own me aren't very bright and just don't do a very good job at it. I welcome debate. I welcome challenge, but this wasn't much of a challenge at all. What did you guys think?
Okay, I think we've heard enough from Discount Robbie Rotten. I mean, my opinions haven't changed about him. If anything, they've only gotten worse and stronger. So feel free to come on and debate me live. I do my show every Tuesday and Friday. You can hit me up in the email or Discord DMs. I respond to both. Until then, if you're a transphobic piece of shit, you're a pervert, and I don't like you at all. Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to hit the like button, subscribe if you want to see more, hit the notification bell to be notified when I upload. If you enjoy my content, you enjoy what I do, I really appreciate any financial help that I can get. Go to youtube.com/AlecGunterTTV/join. You got some awesome benefits, such as seeing early videos, awesome emotes that you can use in the comments of YouTube videos, and a sweet badge next to your name. So if that sounds interesting to you, I'd really appreciate if you join. It is cheaper than the cost of a blowjob from your mom. So with all that being said, thank you again for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.